I arrived later than planned, the sun already leaning west, the light softer than it had any right to be after the week I'd had. I remember thinking, as I turned onto the narrow road that led to the house, that the air felt different here. Thinner, less insistent. The place had always done that, made space around my thoughts. That was the promise, anyway. The first thing I noticed wasn't the ocean. It was the cars. They were everywhere. Angled, double-parked, nosed up against the low wooden fence that marked the edge of the property. A handwritten sign leaned against a palm tree beach parking. The 25. The marker ink had bled slightly in the heat. I stopped the car and just sat there for a moment, engine running, my hands still on the wheel. The house stood exactly as I remembered it, white siding, blue shutters, a little weather, worn but stubbornly upright. It looked like it always had, like it belonged to me. I turned off the engine and stepped out. People were moving through the space like it wasn't private at all. A couple argued lightly about whether they had enough cash. Someone laughed. Someone else asked where the bathroom was and got pointed toward the public restrooms down the beach. I walked past them without being acknowledged. Inside, the air smelled like sunscreen and coffee. My sisters were in the kitchen, all three of them. Shoes kicked off, hair damp, comfortable in a way that suggested they'd been here for a while. "Oh," one of them said when she saw me, not surprised. "Just registering. You're early?" I said nothing. I put my bag down by the door. "We figured you wouldn't mind." Another added, already smiling, "It's making good use of the land." They laughed together. Not cruelly, not apologetically either. The laugh of people who have already agreed with each other. I looked at their faces and felt something familiar settle in my chest. Not anger, exactly. More like the dull recognition of a script I'd read too many times. Decisions made. Justifications offered afterward. My role assumed. I thought about saying something. About pointing out the obvious, the lack of permits, the zoning rules, the blocked access to the neighboring driveway. About how the deed was in my name, how this place had been my responsibility long before it became their convenience. Instead, I walked past them and into the living room. From there I could see the ocean through the wide windows. Blue and patient. It had outlasted worse than this. I sat down on the couch and listened. The sound of cars pulling in. The clink of money dropping into what was probably a shoebox by the door. My sisters talking about how busy it had been all morning, how people were happy to pay, how it was practically stupid not to do this. They didn't ask me what I thought. That, more than anything, decided it. I had learned, over time, that confrontation with them rarely led anywhere useful. It turned into noise, emotion, accusations about being difficult, about not understanding how hard things were for everyone else. Silence, on the other hand, had weight if you knew when to use it. I checked my phone. A missed notification I'd half expected was there already. The city had been cracking down on unlicensed parking operations all summer. Complaints moved quickly now, especially near the beach. I didn't make a call. I didn't need to. The knock came less than 10 minutes later. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't polite. It was the kind of knock that didn't ask whether you were ready. "Police! Open up!" The laughter stopped immediately. One of my sisters froze with a mug halfway to her mouth. Another looked at me, confusion flickering into something sharper. "What did you do?" she asked. I stood up and walked to the door. Outside were two officers. Calm, neutral. Sunburned in the way people who work outdoors often are. "Afternoon," one said. "We've had a report of an unpermitted commercial operation at this address." Behind them, I could see people already being turned away. Cars pulling out, disappointed but compliant. "I'm the owner," I said simply. That changed the shape of the conversation. Questions followed, straightforward ones. "Was there a permit?" "No." "Were fees being charged?" "Yes." "Who was collecting them?" My sister, standing behind me, now silent. I answered when asked. I didn't volunteer commentary. I didn't look at them. The officers were professional, almost kind, but the rules were the rules. The cash box was inspected. The sign was taken down. A warning was issued, with clear instructions about what would happen if it occurred again. My sisters tried to explain. They talked over each other. About how it was just for the weekend. How everyone does it. How they thought it would be fine. The officers listened, nodded, and finished their paperwork. When they left, the house felt suddenly too quiet. The ocean sounded closer now that the cars were gone. One of my sisters rounded on me. "You could have said something?" "I did," I replied. My voice surprised even me with how steady it was. "Just not to you." That was the end of it. Not because it was resolved, but because there was nothing left to argue. The authority had come and gone. Control had shifted, not dramatically, but definitively. They didn't apologize. I didn't ask them to. Later, after they left, earlier than planned, doors closing with a little more force than necessary, I sat alone on the back steps and watched the tide move in. I felt tired, but lighter. The weekend wasn't what I'd imagined. It wasn't restorative in the way brochures promise. But something had settled into place. A boundary, finally visible. The house was quiet again. And this time, it stayed that way.